So we're here at Set Piece the Game. Now, I know that's not a new revelation. Hardly much of what I can scrape together for these older games are. That's just the nature of YouTube being around so long and the video essay exploding in popularity. But I think I'm well positioned to give this game a second chance for what it's most infamously remembered for. A lackluster story with an inconsistent plot with unexplained aspects left, right, and center. There are reasons why Uncharted 3 feels so disjointed. It was plagued with scheduling issues that forced the team to constantly rewrite the narrative that we'll get into, on top of the set pieces created first, story after. As for me only playing this for the first time now, I'm realizing time isn't doing Uncharted any favors. Naughty Dog is now viewed as a story-first studio, not just movie-like, which creates a false expectation for what Uncharted will be for new players like myself. I believe my videos over 1 and 2 are somewhat victim to that mindset. But not here, friends. On that note, if there's something you think I missed that's more about the series as a whole, I'm sure you'll find them in those videos, so check those out after this one. So let's find a disappearing bad guy, take some spice, and get ready for a game that's as wide as the desert sands we find ourselves in, but no deeper than those wells. I do have to admit just how iconic Uncharted is as a franchise. I never played them growing up, and those of you like me know damn well about the train sequence, the single frame of the gun in the sand, or the airplane set piece. For whatever Uncharted lacks in its story, it makes up for in pushing hardware boundaries and providing Tom Cruise's wet dream.
But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act their dream with open eyes to make it possible.
And with the lack of direct story, we get somewhat more of a character study involving Nate. He's basically Lawrence Arabia through Boogaloo, getting a look into what really made him the fortune hunter he is, and also why he feels the need to continue these pursuits, even when it loses people he loves. Could almost call him an addict, which is a fun word to use in the context of this game and its use of hallucinogens. This quote by T.E. Lawrence is completely baked into Nate's journey throughout the game. Nate believes that he's got something to prove and a legacy to live up to. This quote, I imagine, is what keeps Nate up at night. He always gets right to the goal, the treasure, the city, and is always forced to let it go in favor of the people he loves. He wants to be like Francis, artifacts in a museum, remember it as a great, when his real legacy is the friends he made along the way. God damn it, really? This is where I ended up? Oh, you know it's serious when Sully puts out the cigar. Okay, now that's just hot. The sound design coupled with the music over this cinematography, let me just say when it comes to creating the movie feel in a game, they nailed it from jump. Plus, sick transition to show where we are and where we're going. Not a word spoken. That's how it should be. Nice little insert of the 8-ball. Looked at as many things. The final victory, a nervous end, or magical. I like the anxiety angle of it as Drake and Sully entering a room, completely outnumbered, and one mistake will sink their chances of victory.
Enjoying yourself, pal?
Knowing they're buds, I bet he even give him a bit of a tug for good luck.
Nice warm welcome.
Oh, and Sully too, you dirty dog!
Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Drake.
Damn, that subtle hesitation, not a sign of respect, but of knowing he's not a true Drake. Now that's solid direction. To keep it in line with the whole Lawrence angle, we've got Drake dealing with the British. Though not working with them keeps things only tangentially related. Can't just straight up rip his story, can we?
You're a thief.
Well now, that's ironic.
How's he just gonna take my line like that?
Yes, you got! This one's mine!
Man, are they really selling this? I love all the little details a small linear game like this can get in there, like the chips bouncing up as Drake forces him to fold.
Come on!
Subtle way of helping Drake and Sully. As long as he's leading the fight, they can't get too hurt. Drake is constantly going through the most. I don't know how he survives half of it. And after 2 whole games, I don't know, being thrown out a window to just get up and fight some more is just the kind of shit I want to do. But also Drake's tutorial on how to do the new contextual attacks. What are we, some kind of suicide? So we basically get Batman Arkham combat in Uncharted 3. Coming out 2 years later, but laying the groundwork for The Last of Us melee combat. Sure, it's unoriginal and not that good, but whenever something's already perfect, even aping it to this degree, like, you just can't mess it up. Then there are all the paired animations that still look incredible today. I can't imagine my 11-year-old brain's reaction if I played this on release. Not to mention all the contextual attacks. Using the environment so seamlessly seems like a technical nightmare, yet here it works and it's just so satisfying. Rule number 2, double tap. Even today, I'm just caught off guard by the game so naturally having attacks like this door come out. It's seriously impressive.
Is that enough?
Protecting your friend and also setting up the arc that Sully might be getting too old for this life, and Nathan doesn't know when to let off the gas.
Not very dignified for a man of your age.
See?
Wouldn't want you to melt.
Drake's still full of the plucky one-liners.
I wonder what you're really afraid of.
Foreshadowing!
Not bullets or blood or broken bones. No. You get off on all this.
Quitting an addiction is one of the hardest things someone might do in their lives. Something is classified as such when it starts affecting your life and relationships negatively. Well, you lost Elena, so that's my evidence, Judge.
Cutter!
Oh no. Oh,
Shut up!
Okay, so we know they aren't dead, but that didn't take away from my initial shock. Francis sailed to Borneo? Think you might have found any hidden immunity isles while he's there? A byproduct of being a somewhat old gamer at this point, but shit like this still impresses me. This and mirrors will always get a second glance out of me. PSA to all the boys out there, this is how subtle you are when you're checking them out. Uncharted 3 does a great job on slowly rolling out each game mechanic for us. First melee, then climbing, moving to exploration and puzzling, to finally guns. It all flows so smoothly and gives new players plenty of time to acclimate. I also appreciate the lack of tutorial pop-ups. It really respects returning players and keeps this game as immersive and movie-like as possible. I, at a point, genuinely started laughing at the absurd amount of climbables that break on Drake. If you want to teleport, take a drink every time it happens while playing. And the climbing too still feels incredible. Sure, measuring distance can be awkward at times, but I bet you tripped up the stairs earlier today, so whatever. I've always wished it was as free as AC in terms of freedom of routes, but this game isn't an open world, and director Amy Hennig has stated it would never be. Linear is the goal. You guys have heard me complain in the past about yellow paint leading the way. There are many times in Uncharted where just through the subtlest of art direction, I was able to parse out my path without having my oh so coveted immersion ruined.
your technique is really sloppy, though. You're telegraphing all your moves.
Don't we all just love a bad influence? Especially when it's a guy like Sully. Who are we to say that maybe he shouldn't have taken an orphan boy with self-confidence issues and raised him up to be a thief treasure hunter?
I'm pretty sure you don't like the cops any more than I do.
Good point.
Even at a young age, Drake was running a decent game. Get your target to laugh, distract, and relate, and you're about 100% of the way to doing whatever you want with somebody. Or in this case, getting away with it with somebody.
Telegraphing all my moves, huh?
William Brent plays such a good young Drake. Like, I don't think it could have been more perfect than this. Funny how in a weird way, it seems that Nathan never grew up.
What ring?
Remember this moment. It's honestly impressive how long chases go on in this game. At a point I even asked myself, this is still going? The amount of work on just creating a level of this size with the amount of detail that Naughty Dog likes to implement is reason enough for a ding-a-ling.
Excuse me, coming through. Sorry about that.
So respectful. Well, I'm glad Sully draws the line of slapping and shooting kids.
What do you want from me?
A little gratitude would be nice.
Seeing more of Sully is what people wanted after Uncharted 2. Not that I should went, okay, here's how they met, which I love. Seeing a brown head Sully the hunk makes you want to.
It belongs in my family. I'm just taking it back.
That's actually really heartwarming, considering he grew up in the Francis group home. That name and legacy is the closest thing he ever had to one, so he took it on.
If I was going to take it from you, I would have done it by now.
I know he means well, but I can't help but laugh at the implication of, if I wanted it, I would have shot your ass.
Sic parvis magna. It means greatness from small beginnings.
And with Nathan having nothing at such a young age, it's no surprise that he imprints on Francis so heavily, striving to be more than just an orphan street urchin. It's also a double-edged sword for Nate, as it's a massive driving factor in the issues he finds himself in during this game.
Look pretty friendly to me.
Yeah, well.
That's smirk. Dude knows he's got that riz.
Drake sailed through the East Indies. Only he says that it took him 6 months to get from here to here.
I don't think I've mentioned that Uncharted is going to the Assassin's Creed school of creating their game. By that, I mean Francis Drake was a real person, whom Naughty Dog is being very creative with how they're using his history. He actually did sail through here, and it did take him longer than expected. Now, it's more accepted in real life that he stopped to avoid the conflict happening back at home than finding and hiding a freaking city in the sands, but still really fun blend of history and fiction, like discovering a map and the figurehead of his actual ship, the Golden Hind.
You got talent, but you got a lot to learn. You stick with me, and I'll teach you a few things.
You know what he really wants him for is his frame. He's got those tiny hands and a body that could fit in like tiny death trap puzzles or something.
I see great things in our future, kid. Great things.
Now that's just comedy. Charlie gets his own dolly zoom to emphasize his fear. God, I wish he was around the entire game.
Looks like hell spit you two back out.
It was a thing of beauty, Chloe.
I went off without a hitch.
The snappy dialogue we know and love from Naughty Dog. I can't front. The first act of this game, seriously, kind of somewhat like really does. If we could have only had these four plus Elena later and some shifting of the story, this would for sure be one of the best. The chemistry between everyone is off the charts and I was enthralled.
Helps if you have something in between. Well, it looks like I missed out on some fun.
Yeah, you did, actually. It was very, very cathartic.
It's funny.
All this banter gives such a sense of history that we just immediately buy these guys as a crew that's been working together for a while. No need for something like, oh, Cutter, you remember back in Libya when we were both looking for the treasure but hated each other and then became mates? You know, like that kind of forced dialogue. This is natural, entertaining, and most of all, funny. Gotta love how Drake feels up every wall he sees, don't you?
Well, abracadabra cadabra.
Is he crying? Crying because he's so proud of himself or what? Let me know down below the like button. Ooh, that's a fun camera angle. It makes me miss fixed camera angle games. The sense of scale is something Uncharted has never been this slouch with. Being this tiny little guy, dangerously climbing high up, it just has that it factor.
Oh, hello, mate. We must have taken a wrong turn somewhere.
Yeah, is this King's Cross?
Are you kidding me, Sully? King's Cross? Like the busiest station in all of London? Look where you are! Read a room! I know The Last of Us was being developed by a different team at the same time as this, hence the third act kind of rushed nature and the rushed development timeline. But this game totally laid the groundwork for those boys, it seems. Oh my God, Drake, this is why people call you a homicidal maniac.
I saw him put it around his neck. This doesn't make sense.
We've been duped.
Recall that scene earlier? Call back. Also, shows how much of a stain Drake's deception was on her ego to go through and learn how to do the same trick. It sets up their rivalry well and is a good connection point to their 20-year-old feud, foreshadowing to the poison that Marlowe employs.
This was mailed from Dorset on the day of his motorcycle accident.
They?
Yeah, they, them, whoever these people are.
Once again, taking the true history of Lawrence dying from a motorcycle accident and adding a layer of fiction onto it for their story. I don't know exactly how I feel about it with how recent the exploits were, but it's still fun. Nonetheless, I think.
Witnesses saw a black car run him off the road.
Okay, well, there is some speculation of him being assassinated, but there is no true evidence to support that theory. There were witnesses, though. The two boys whom he was trying to avoid hitting. So it's not Naughty Dog speculation, just other people's. I feel better now. My fragile conscience is clear.
Nate!
What?
That thing that you have been waiting 20 years for?
Him getting distracted like that, one, is for the purposes of him being Lawrence 2, and two, to show how much he holds Lawrence in regard right next to Francis. And just like the previous Uncharted games, the shooting is as smooth as ever. Snapping behind cover, blind firing, it's all solid.
He's probably the one who invented that.
Seriously into the occult. I mean, like a really creepy dark
Yeah, see, he signed all his letters to the Queen with this symbol, meaning he was her eyes.
The original 007, you see, look. 007.
Not really that relevant.
Cutter immediately makes his mark as one of us, just bouncing off Nate here, knowing even more than Sully.
And this is where T.E. Lawrence comes in. See, before Lawrence became Lawrence of Arabia,
Great film.
Cutter kills me.
after the war, Lawrence said that if he were ever to go back to Arabia, it would be to search for this place he called the Atlantis of the Sands. Now, the legend crops up over and over again under different names. Ubar, Aram of the Pillars, the City of Brass.
We've got a theme going on with the Uncharted treasures. Lost cities. El Dorado, Shambhala, and now Ubar. Don't know what their hard-on about cities is in particular, but I imagine it's because they're the most grandiose in nature. Now, Lawrence isn't actually the coiner of the term, just how Aram isn't really accepted to be another name for Ubar. Naughty Dog is cleverly bringing together all sorts of rejected truths and using it to create the mystery for their hidden city. I think it's pretty neat as I feel this cooler understanding as I'm doing research on all these things. I'm starting to feel like a treasure hunter, trying to piece everything together and understand it.
After the war, Lawrence said that if he were ever to go back to Arabia, it would be to search for this place he called the Atlantis of the Sands.
This is actually quite an exciting scene. I'm a sucker for these pre-planning, putting all the pieces together moments.
No, hang on a second, because if you recall the last time we went halfway around the world searching for a lost city, things got more than a little dicey.
Drake only had half the clues. Lawrence only had half. We have both. And Marlowe has nothing.
That last bit is the important one. This isn't really about the city itself. It's about Drake being able to prove Marlowe wrong in her assessment of him and to himself that he is just as spectacular as these two men and not just that orphan urchin.
Chateau should be this way.
Following directly in Lawrence's footsteps, dude wants to be him. Uncharted always has the perfect ebb and flow between combat and exploration. Just before one gets tiresome, the other takes over.
Jesus, they brought a small army with them.
And you have no qualms putting them down. I love how familiar this mission feels to much of Uncharted 1. Uncharted 3 does a lot of showing and not enough telling. There is much about the plot and story that you've got to infer and figure out on your own. The story here is like our own treasure hunt. The man here was killed by one of the spiders, further setting up the connection with Talbot. This puzzle took me a minute because I, like a high school graduate, I know, big flex, read it top down. Naughty Dog gave us just enough for it to kind of start working until you notice the arrow at the bottom.
You know, one of these days you're really gonna have to start carrying your own matches.
What are you talking about?
Man, this line would have hit really hard if Sully did end up retiring or dying. They're setting it up hard. This puzzle was by far the hardest for me, which I really enjoyed. Being challenged and not just looking in the journal for the answer was a nice shakeup.
What is that?
Yeah, nope. There was a distinct goal Amy Hennig had with Uncharted 3. They really wanted to push the PS3 to be the best Avatar it can be. Meaning they wanted to see how well they can make fire, water, sand, and air look in this game. I mean, the whole second and third act are dedicated to 2 of these. We'll talk more when we get there. And with that said, just like the first 2 games, 3 still impresses all these years later, especially in the facial animations. I don't feel like I'm playing a tired old game going back to these, which is impressive as normally games that focus on art style are what age the best. The sheer variety of set pieces is what impresses me. We're never in a locale for long before we're whisked to the next one. Uncharted 3 is short with pacing so quick you might not even notice the lackluster story.
I'm not going anywhere. Obviously. I just want to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. You got your pride all tangled up in this thing. It's making you reckless. I taught you better than that.
Oof, I love when the older mentor gives it to our protagonist straight. And just like that, we're 4,000 kilometers southeast.
Well, Talbot ambushed us at the Chateau. It was a trap.
Yeah, we figured they must have followed you too.
Well, yeah, they're definitely here.
This candor about it all. They know and really aren't concerned about it.
We've been trying to reach you for over 24 hours.
Oh, right, I need to top up my minutes.
You're using a prepaid phone?
Mate, those contracts are a complete rip-off.
God, I miss these 2 later. Remember these tarot cards here. The Last of Us totally wears its inspirations on its sleeve, didn't it? Uncharted 3 also brings in many more sections that could be entirely stealth through, not just a couple scripted bits like its predecessor.
He's gone. How in the world?
This is one of the things that isn't addressed. This scene is a holdover from the plans to get more into the supernatural side of things with the djinn. Here soon we're gonna have the first big diversion in the game. God, if I had to squeeze through a space like this on acid, I would lose my head. I really feel for Cutter here. Willing to kill for your surrogate son.
Mate, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry.
That right there is why Nolan North is the GOAT. No words, but we just understand exactly what Nate is feeling. The puzzle's pretty neat because I was looking for islands to line up with this. Yeah, I get that's pretty dumb, but hey, they got me, what can I say? Love the attention to detail and how quickly he scribbled that down. This technique is called frottage, where you place an object underneath the paper and scribble it on the top side. Good for a quick copy.
I think I'll hold on to this one.
All the same, you lost a journal and gun, so...
You son of a
Cutter,
bitch.
pull the trigger. My pleasure.
What a G! Talbot planted the tower card on Cutter. This card is associated with danger, crisis, and sudden change. This, on top of the image being a literal burning tower, is a not so subtle way of adding depth to this. It's also a dig to Cutter as he had tarot cards in his journal, and plays in line with the supernatural side of things, as some people believe tarot cards have an otherworldly property to them to describe fate.
Not worth the price of admission, folks.
I love Chloe. Why'd she leave?
Let this one go.
Oh, no. You can't just give up. If you let these bastards win. After this.
So they had to write Cutter out of the story because Graham McTavish got cast as Dwalin in The Hobbit. Chloe and Cutter being a package deal, she had to go to. But it actually really helps Nate's story as he's got the devil and angel on his shoulder between these 2.
What are you trying to prove?
You look great.
So, against my better judgment.
Damn, we were all wondering what happened to Elena, and this is it. Nick being a Nick Cage treasure guy works better without the ball and chain, you know what I'm saying? I'm kidding. I know 5% of you guys are female.
Yeah, not yet anyway.
I love them. I would bet money Nolan North improvised that.
Why, Nate?
That's what we're here to find out.
No, I mean, why this obsession?
I like that in between games it's implied that these 2 split because of his obsession with Ubar.
Pick your poison.
Whoa, this is the most player choice Naughty Dog has ever offered us. This is the other puzzle I really loved. Having the giant room and having to line up these statues, it always blows me away having stuff like this.
Okay, so Nate, did Francis Drake ever find that lost city that he was looking for?
Could you be a little more specific?
The Arabs used the stars to navigate the desert just like sailors on the ocean.
The massive similarities between the ocean and desert is always so neat. It's basically a slow-moving ocean that you can walk on. I guess whirlwind? So here it's not the pellets that are keeping the spiders at bay, but instead the muzzle flash, which is pretty neat. Also, doesn't this remind you guys of one of those shooters from the arcade with the plastic gun and pedal? I can't remember the name of it. Let me know down below the like button if you do.
Listen, you've won, okay? You've outsmarted her.
I really love this theme. Yeah, it's pretty much the same scene and dialogue over and over again, but that's to drive home the point as hard as possible. Drake is an addict to adventure and can't sit still too long. Along with his need to prove himself, it's a dangerous combination and shows just how blind some people could be when they're addicted. What are we, some kind of Ubisoft game?
Entrusted to the St. Francis Boys' Home. It's also Dickensian.
Dickensian, to be suggestive of contents found in Dickens novels. squalid, and poverty-stricken, chief among them. The more you know. Hong Lee was one of the character artists for this game.
When he scooped you off the streets of Colombia 20 years ago, did he save you from that life? Or did he just doom you to this one?
She's playing a really good mental game right here, I'd say. We know Sully would never rat, but it's a good point to ponder on where Nate should place his priorities.
Look, even if I did know, my life wouldn't be worth very much once I told you, now would it?
You insult me.
You're a pirate.
And a good businessman.
Though these next 4 chapters have no bearing on the plot, there is some really entertaining dialogue and the best level coming up. In other words, it's turning off your brain time.
Wait, you leave Sully alone.
Bye, Nathan.
Why are you so cute? This entire section of the game is just straight up Uncharted. No real consequential story or plot points, just pure platforming and fighting. And I, for one, freaking dig it. Just like with the Sand Later and Fire earlier, this entire level being on water was a challenge and new boundary for Naughty Dog. To have an entire level pitching and rolling on a fluid simulation was not an easy task. And what else is not an easy task was flipping an entire level on its side. This just screams of one of those set pieces that they just had to do, but could not for the life of them find a real narrative reason to throw it in. This is pretty awesome and done so well that even looking at it makes me kind of sick. Get Naughty Dog to make a Titanic game. And now we're seeing a location of where we were earlier from a different angle. Does this get any cooler? Captain must go down with his ship, eh? If I had $1 for every time we watched whatever the hell it is we're running from away from this game, I'd have a couple dollars.
How convenient.
Lamp shading.
We gotta try.
Listen, I've got a plan.
You know how you don't want to drink and then your friend drinks around you and you're like, all right, I'll have one. The next thing you're driving to the nearest club? Yeah, same thing here.
You do realize that means parachuting in, right?
We've done it before.
Call back to the first game.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Oh my god, guys, is Uncharted 4 gonna make me cry? Make sure to subscribe to see that video drops next week. I really thought I was doing something wrong not being able to catch up, and then we've made it, folks, to one of the most iconic scenes in all of gaming. Does it make a lick of sense? Not really. Is it the coolest thing ever? Yeah, we need more of this nonsense. Just fun for the sake of it. This is why Helldivers 2 is doing so well. Oh, that sound design. From the roar of the airplane to the calm of Nate's clothes flapping. Superbly well done. Don't forget that's Drake's actual legacy. That's him, our hero. This was really cool when I realized I'm in control again. A big factor that Naughty Dog wanted to keep in Uncharted games is to keep us in control of Nate as much as possible. Pretty much every set piece, we were in the driver's seat. Don't forget this game came out in 2011. The tessellation on the sand is something completely new for Naughty Dog. They prided themselves greatly on getting designers out there to roll around in the sand for reference to get it just right. It's been a while since I've mentioned him. This is a pretty direct reference to Lawrence of Arabia film at Alley's Well. We're forcibly made to walk in circles, illustrating that we think we're going forward, but nah. It's surprisingly common for people to actually wander in circles when lost. These colors here are really striking and beautiful to look at. Oh yeah, Nate is like dying for something. I don't know. We could make an allusion to him wandering the desert for 40 days, this being a test to understand what really matters to him. And now we finally arrived at Nate becoming a Lawrence too, working with and somewhat leading this Arab tribe against their enemies. Right away from drinking the water, all this weird stuff starts happening. I thought it was just residual drugs and not the water he just drank.
That's a hell of a thing.
This could have been a really powerful ending for this game. Having Nate's need for validation getting Sully killed would have been the ultimate consequence. I was kind of shocked for a second that they did this, but then I remembered Uncharted 4 exists. But it works really well for highlighting just what Nate truly fears the most, and it's done in the way the player feels so right alongside Nate. The final chapter is titled The Dreamers of the Day, referencing our opening line. It's also funny because Nate is literally dreaming in the day while he's tripping balls.
Ow!
Best dad ever.
He lied to the Queen, told her he didn't find anything, and then hid all traces of his voyage.
Let me guess, that's what you're gonna do too? Be just like your daddy?
Hey. Sweet.
That might be the quickest Chekhov's gun I've ever seen. I really appreciate our villains aren't like Nate, where his first impulse is to kill everyone in the room. It really humanizes them.
As Francis sent it from Elizabeth. Prove your greatness.
I got nothing to prove.
Weaponizing once again his insecurities. I love that it's upon realizing that Drake hid the city away from everyone that he finally feels whole. He has, after all, done this same thing now for a third time. Nate symbolically loses Drake's ring, showing to us that he's finally shed that version of himself that was living in the shadow of Drake. Again, this game is still so impressive to me. The way everything is crumbling around us, it's still playable, is fantastic. It really makes me want to be a developer. I can't imagine the pride they must feel in pulling off a sequence like this. And just like the story of Atlantis, Ubar also gets taken by the sea. Sully always makes out with some treasure. He's still the master.
You're not proposing, are you, Sully? I mean, I love you, but...
Stop. Just stop being a wise ass for 1 second.
How long you been carrying that around?
Too long.
Oh, I love this. Sully at this point is living for Nate as recompense for all his mistakes he's made in life.
Real greatness, it's what you do with the hand you dealt.
And now that Nate has shed the idea of Drake being his father, he's finally ready to heed his real daddy's advice about greatness.
I swapped it for something better.
What a mic drop moment. So we really just end right where Uncharted 2 ended. I think that's okay. These first 3, at least, were made to be complete standalone adventures. Naughty Dog wanted people to be able to jump on at any moment. There isn't a single plot thread in this game you can't follow, even if you haven't played the previous ones. Uncharted 3, to me, is a weird one in the series. 4 is touted as the best, 2 has the best story of the trilogy, 1 started it all, and then there's 3, which is all about the action. I don't see anything wrong with that. Of course, I wanted more story and plot to chew on, but what we have on offer is still pretty damn good if you want to take the time to understand it and not get lost in the noise of a 45-minute pirate mission. Drake has an arc here, and it's a pretty interesting one at that. Drake's deception is a double entendre, speaking to Francis lying about Ubar, and Nate's deception to himself. Throughout the game, Nate is lying to himself about what his mission is really about and why it matters so much to him, why he needs to beat Marlowe, and quite a lot of it comes from childhood trauma. His mother is speculated to have committed the old no longer breathing technique, making him an orphan. Growing up on his own from nothing, he had started to forge his own path when he runs into Marlowe and Sully, the former of which beats him and orders his death at the hands of her men. Dealing with all of that as a kid and latching onto Francis for some semblance of identity, that's how he ended up with Drake's arc becoming his own man. All the Lawrence of Arabia stuff is more of just fun set dressing for the game to latch itself onto for structure. Also, let's not forget that our boy is addicted to the game. It took a healthy dose of acid to get over that one, and honestly, same. Psychedelics have helped many people overcome addiction. Now, am I saying he's gonna stop? Absolutely not. But I believe after learning of Francis's lie and having his family back together, he's now going to start doing it for the right reasons. Our other characters in the story are really just sounding boards for Drake to bounce off to while he's working out his shit. The only other character with an arc is Sully, and his really just comes down to being a better father to Nate, possibly not indulging their own worst impulses and molding Nate into an image that he would be proud of. Something that he's not likely proud of is the amount of hordes Nate mows down, though. And the third act of this game is almost exclusively just that. It really leans into combat hard, and this is a direct result of them barely making their promised release date. And remember, this is a time before delays were commonplace, so Naughty Dog pulled members off The Last of Us just to get it done. It's also why we don't really get a final boss or even get control of Nate when destroying the vessel, which goes directly against the ethos of Uncharted. It makes for an interesting look back on how games quietly get changed or not achieve their vision just based on schedule. Oh yeah, and don't forget that this is the same ending as 2, with Nate and Elena getting back together, finding and running from a crumbling city. You get it. Scheduling was the bane of this game's existence, and it's almost a miracle that this game ever got published in the first place. Oh, okay, that's a little hyperbolic. Not really. Uncharted 2 won Game of the Year, so of course they're going to make it. And what Uncharted 3 does isn't anything groundbreaking, but what it does do is take the framework and just keep cranking that dial. Bigger and more feels like a safe way to describe what Uncharted 3 was going for. Hell, the entire boat sequence is just insanity, and there just to be cool. So many awesome set pieces throughout this game. I'm very excited to see how 4 one-ups it. I really enjoyed Uncharted 3 for what it was. Playing it on its terms only heightened my enjoyment of it. Understanding that it's one of those games that you just turn your brain off, grab some food, and enjoy it over a weekend. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me. When did you guys first play Uncharted 3? Were you older, younger? Let me know down below, and as always, drive the speed limit, drink some water, and one love another. Pizza!